1, 2, 3. Yes, there we go. All right, welcome everybody on the live and the replay. We got our brother Seth back in the house. This ought to be really interesting. We're going to go about an hour and 15, hour and a half. And I'm just going to give people time to come in. And then let me just also do a little plug. If you haven't been to SoulogyNetwork.com, please go check it out. We've been open since the 10th or the 11th. And we're going to be bringing more stuff to you. But right now I'm going to play the intro, give people time to come in. We'll be back in a minute, 19 seconds. What's happening, everybody? We got Seth in the house, the second time around, and I think we're going to be doing many, many more collaborations down the road. We had a pretty good synergy last time. I know there's one or two things you wanted to do in the message you wrote me before you coordinated it with Morgan, and we'll get to that. But we were just having a quick chat prior to the show, talking about everything that's going on. It's important, I think, that we look at everything on the landscape, right? And it used to be that people would say, "Man, these light workers, all they do is say fluffy love and light stuff, and they don't look at the dark." And if they don't look at it, it doesn't exist. And I guess there's some truth to that, but at the same time, we're making this up as we go. We're creating this new blueprint, this new template, this new good book, by taking everything into consideration and making discernments and moving forward with our thoughts, words, and actions, hopefully in alignment with universal will. But there has been a lot of talk, obviously, about the things that are going on. We know this: quarantine, COVID, mask, the election, the purported fraud, and really, it's the same thing we've been going through for thousands of years. And something's different. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, thinking there's going to be a different result. So yeah, I'm really excited to be talking to you today. It's great to have you back. Thank you for coming in, honoring us with your presence, and welcome to Soul Speaks 5D, Seth.
Oh, thank you so much, Todd. Great introduction and great way to summarize everything that so many people are focused on, because it's a good point to point out, like, okay, all that's going on. We're spending so much time focusing on it that we're not really focusing on the things that really actually matter.
Yeah. Yes, I'm with you, man.
Yeah. Our wellness, our health, our individual wellness, like
in all ways, right? In all capacities: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, chakral, atomic. He froze up. I'm curious. I'm just going to throw this out there, because one of the things I've noticed, especially as the years accelerated rapidly in the last few weeks, is the way that everything is presented to me in my own field. It's like turning pages in a book. I think that it's not just me. I think there's more clarity, and it's just I'm noticing that regardless of what I'm looking at or feeling or intuiting, our dream state, which has been very interesting, there seems to be a sequential cohesion, One thing, seamlessly moves into another, even though I might be having a lucid dream. And then I wake up, walk outside, and there's 12 birds around me. I'm like, what's going on with this? And they all seem to be kind of coming together. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because in the last 36 hours, I'd gotten some intel, which was kind of a continuation of some things I got a few years ago, galactic wars, Earth history, and it kind of stopped for a while. Then it picked up again a couple of weeks ago. But it was interesting in the last 24 hours or so. I was getting information that, and I don't know the exact date, but that the Earth had been here for a lot longer than science and anyone else thought. There's been literally hundreds of civilizations. It's not just us and Lemuria and Atlantis and Avalon and all that. And there's a culmination, at least from what I could tell, in the galaxy, where there'd been a certain physical experience to include things that might seem non-physical to us. I'm talking about higher frequency, ET, star family, whatever. And so it brings us to this point, and that's why I guess, I didn't plan it, but that's why I guess I opened the show the way I did, because I'm with you. Like, all this time we've been distracted by the distortions of all these stories out there, fear-based programming, savior-based programming, history, what's real, what's not, who committed fraud, who didn't, what side are you on? It's really about, programs of divisiveness and separation. Yeah. When are we going to start talking about you and me and all our brothers and sisters?
I love it because it's such a common sense oriented perspective, but amidst all of the chaos, it's almost like a sore tooth, right? All these things are going on and we don't want to touch that sore tooth, but we keep doing it anyway. And so we're always in this place like, oh, it hurts, but I can't stop touching it. And many people are like that, when they perceive all these events happening, when everything that's going on, they're just like continuously taking the most valuable thing that they have, which is their attention, their awareness, and placing it on all of these things that may be true, maybe they're not true, maybe they're kind of true, who knows, but essentially we're placing more importance on maybes instead of taking that very same attention and placing it on things that are much more solid, which is our state of being, our heartbeat, our physical wellness. If we're elevated and feeling happy and grateful to be alive here or not, but it's a choice, I guess. That's what free will comes in.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's beginning to be more of a not general, but a more frequent conversation that doesn't just pay it lip service, and that would be the fact that we're transforming from a carbon-based body to a light-based body, or however you want to put that. There's plenty of evidence all around the world and individuals that it's happening. It's happening to more people, things like they're sweating a metal smell, or they're purging, or different things that may have been seen as an aberration are no longer aberrations anymore, because it looks like this is actually happening. And we were in this incredible time and place where there's an integration of the physical and the non-physical, and we're somewhere in the middle of it, in the middle of this, in the eye of the hurricane. But one of those things that comes to the surface when considering that, and I know this is part of what you focus on, is the purification, that might not be the right word, the detoxing, the preparation, the assistance, and the cooperation with the body in regards to being able to sustain this transfiguration, this transmutation, right? This transformation. And I'm a big believer that I'm a big believer in the placebo effect, and what I mean by that is what we believe is what is. But there is a fuzzy line there when it comes to what we put in our body and what habits we have as far as exercise and just different things like that. So I'm going to throw that one at you and let you just kind of bounce that one around a little bit and see where it goes.
Well, we are certainly creatures of habit. human beings are, even in our individual lives, we like the same routines, thinking the same things, feeling the same things. We're very much habitual creatures. However, that form of individual habituation has translated into a collective habituation to the degree that we as individuals and a collective together think and feel within very limited parameters. And the reality is we are multidimensional beings, meaning that we also have the ability to perceive reality in ways that are way beyond our normal five senses, where most of us are just kind of focused on, or just on an automatic habituation, if you will. So realizing that, okay, there is way more going on in this invisible, non-physical universe that I'm not perceiving with my normal senses. Why?
Yeah.
To me, it's like I'm more interested in figuring out what in me is preventing me from being able to be aware of all of this invisible, non-physical, immaterial potentials that may exist out in reality. And the more I focus on those possibilities and loving that those possibilities are even possible, the more I start to exercise aspects of my own human perception that are normally locked into this habituated kind of perceptual box, it starts opening up. Just as the universe is in this state of expansion, our awareness, our consciousness has the ability to be in this expansive state. But we're not used to that. We're so used to this narrow kind of view that when we first start to expand, it might feel a little bit like, whoa, it's bringing up some stuff. But if we stick with it and we keep going, just like trying to build muscles in a gym, you work really hard, you put in a lot of effort trying to figure out, but then you rest. And it's in that rest that the growth happens.
Yeah.
But it's that commitment to doing it consistently every day that will eventually allow us to perceive reality through all these different facets beyond our five senses. And that's what I'm passionate about.
I like that metaphor because, if I think about, like, for instance, weightlifting, I mean, that's the protocol. You lift, I think 1 or 2 days, and then you have to take a day off. Yeah. So the muscles can integrate, basically. I also like it because if you look at, look at exercise, as from an individualization standpoint, nobody does it for you. When you go out jogging or, whatever it is, nobody does it for you. And so much of what, there's so many different, points of contention and separation and division or whatever, distraction. But you can kind of throw a general blanket on it and you can cut it down to one thing, I think, and that is, and to get back to your metaphor, no one's going to do it for you. And so we have so many programs, and of course the election, even the COVID, anti-vax or I'm for vax, and all these oppositions, all this divisiveness really comes down to one thing. Are you waiting for somebody to do it for you, or are you going to get off your ass and do it yourself? And here's the kicker. The kicker is everybody wants to contribute. If you put from a human perspective, one of us in charge and being God, I'm positive, and that at the core of their existence and essence, they would be the most benevolent God that ever lived. Okay. Now, from going back to the human, the one of many, the great thing about, taking on the responsibility for yourself is that's also the greatest contribution you can make to the collective. So you're killing two birds with one stone.
It's funny. I always say healing two birds with one crystal.
There you go. Healing two birds. I know I felt kind of funny when I said that. I thought that's kind of negative.
But you nailed it. You nailed it exactly. Like, nobody is going to do for us what we need to do for ourselves. And we're so addicted to prioritizing all of these external things that ultimately have no real or lasting value to the quote unquote divine or energetic nature of our makeup, that until we realize that we're allowing this totally beautiful and empowered aspect of ourselves to be distracted by all these external things, when we realize that, then we can start reeling it back in, you know, bit by bit. It doesn't have to be instantaneously. It could be, but it's just a matter of doing it and not doing it that makes the difference. And most aren't really doing it. And the ones that are doing it are finding like, okay, I'm getting some progress, but then it all falls apart and I feel frustrated. That's great. That means that something is happening. But it seems to be that we are at a time when we are being called more than ever to truly be the ones who are going to do what nobody is going to do for us. And that requires consistently showing up, consistently becoming present from an internal perspective to everything that we resist, to everything that we perceive, and bringing that expansive state of being that is innate in all of us to whatever it is that we're resisting. The more we do that, and I can speak for myself, I do this constantly. Those things that I resist or that I fear eventually will dissolve. And something greater fills in the gap.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. You know, and it's not just, you know, because we're in a community, you know, and I talked about this earlier last week. You know, I was getting intel of, hey, I got it real heavy one night, and they said, hey, look, you know, if you guys can't form unity consciousness in this way shower community where you believe that you are leading the way, then how the hell is the rest of the world going to do it? And I think one of the things that we overlook, and I try to keep myself in check on this, you know, because so much of what we see out there that we say, oh, that's not me, that is, you know, and so it's not just looking for that fearless moral inventory, that consistency in looking at yourself and saying, okay, am I throwing all my eggs in someone's basket? Am I guilty of that? And I'm not seeing it. You know, am I working against what I'm saying? Am I walking the talk? But also, I think because this community does have a lot of leadership, there's no argument that's going to hold any salt that these people, the people that are listening, people like you, have had very similar experiences. They may not be exactly the same, but they had a download. Most of them, they had a download a specific period of time. You know, a lot of those occurred around 2012. They started to follow this guidance. They defied society and conventional wisdom. And that in and of itself is a leadership frequency. And one of the things that I try to check myself on too, it's not just, am I putting my eggs in someone's basket, but am I trying to fill my basket up with a bunch of people, which is really the same thing. You know, this isn't about being right. This is about being true. To thine own self be true, you know, and that's the strange thing, because this is not something that would be familiar to our past conditioning, life experience in our previous incarnations.
How beautiful. And it's reminiscent of this idea of the law of emergence that we see in nature, when a whole bunch of school of fish will just all move exactly the same way at the same time, or a bunch of birds in the sky will just make this move. And you're like, how could they do it? How do they know? There's no actual leader. It's because they're all leading. They're all actually in that place where they're at the cutting edge of their own perceptual awareness, to the degree they're just totally confident with it. They're just in tune with it. And so making choices to quote unquote lead just become a natural expression of their own state of being. And we're seeing that happen. We're seeing that happen a lot. And that's why so many people are coming into this greater self-awareness and this greater awareness of the world. However, what we're also seeing is that so many of these people who are so powerful and so beautiful keep investing a lot of their attention in these potential fear-based outcomes, which absolutely they could happen, but come on, like, we are all the most powerful beings there ever could be, for all we know. What are we focusing on? Because that projection, that like focusing on, okay, yeah, I get it. Like nobody wants to be forced vaccines. Nobody want like all these things, like, but they haven't happened yet. So
Yeah.
why keep focusing on how afraid of it you are when instead you could focus on the root cause of what your fear actually is to
Yeah.
begin with. And
That's a good one.
that's what allows you to start leading within your own life.
That's good. That's great. And along the same lines, you know, why am I following whatever it is? Is it out of fear? You know, is it because I want everything to be okay? Because there's no difference between that and not taking anything away from anybody than the savior-based mentality of a Christian church that, you know, Jesus is going to come save me. I had a guy tell me that one day. He said, the great thing is I can go watch porn all day. I can do this. I can do that. I can do this. And Jesus is saving me.
So many people believe similar things. I know.
Well, I mean, even in the light worker community, as you've seen what's happened in the polarization with the subjects such as Q or American politics, you know, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, why is there such an attachment? Is it not the same fear-based programming product, the fear-based programming, no different than what's occurred over the last few thousand years? I'm with you on what you said at the top of the show. It's time to choose ourselves and to bring all of our experience combined with what we're pulling down and create in the moment, in the present moment, the best possible version of a divine human being that has never lived before, because we're different than we were yesterday, and we can keep ascending, we can keep expanding, and I believe we're doing a pretty good job with it, but I also think we're going to be tested. I don't think that that the distortion is going to get any softer. But the louder the distortion is, the greater the potential we have to use that as alchemization material and transform to our highest potential.
I love it. Exactly. You know, in many ways, we've been so habitually conditioned to believe that somebody or something is going to save us or help us or do something. And so coming into this time when we're starting to realize, like, we're the ones that are going to do it. You know, it takes a little bit of adjusting for people, but, you know, and people have to listen to other people and stuff to get information to help them with that journey. But the people who are really doing this internally for real are people who are saying things like, if you resonate with what I'm saying or what you hear come, then take from it what serves you.
Right.
But only do that long enough until you start connecting to the point that I'm communicating to you from. Because once you connect to that point, you'll never need to listen to me, to you, to anybody ever again. And you will clearly be in that place of self-illumination, of empowerment, knowing that you are the one you've been waiting for.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go back to this download I got over the last day and a half. Now, this is my conversation with the universe. And so what part of what I was being shown was, and I don't have all the details, you know, I haven't like pulled it all down, but it was basically showing me how the galaxy was set up. And this is, again, in a space that lies between what I would say is purely non-physical and the human experience, which is what? Visible light spectrum and a limited sensory capability, right? So what I was shown things like serpent species, Draco species, you know, reptilian, all the way down the line, and how there was almost like a hierarchy. And what I saw in this structure was the same elements that exist on the earth, which is control, power, greed, and all these things that come from an egoic. And so I said to the universe, well, what the heck is that? Where does that put us? And then I was shown, this is the container that we're speaking of. You guys come from out here, like way before. So I'm asking questions like Elohim, just different, central sun. No, you just come. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know is poof. That's where you came from. Here's the container. And what you're looking at here on Earth is no different than anywhere else in the galaxy. And I liked this transmission because it gave me a sense of equality with any species, any place, any time, and it put me a little bit more in touch with my infinite soul.
Oh my God, I love that. It's so beautiful, and it's actually, I've had a very similar kind of download or perceptual awareness recently too, in that, you know, we're hyper focused on the details of the seeming appearance of the way things appear to be, but we haven't conditioned ourselves to be aware of the source that is emanating all these projections to begin with. And so even the way people look at different star systems, or, you know, like the Earth itself, the Earth is part of a solar system that is part of an arm of this giant Milky Way galaxy. And when you zoom out and you keep looking at, like, it is one big giant living system, and every point of it, no matter where you focus on, is a fractal of the bigger, of the smaller, and this repeats itself anywhere you look. So by choosing to become aware of the entirety of yourself and your existence on this life in terms of a living system, instead of this compartmentalized, broken down machine type of way that a lot of people perceive reality, we start to become endowed or imbued with the virtues of what a living system like that would function as. And that's where a lot of life and empowerment comes out of.
Yeah. Now, I know you've been on quite, when we first connected before the last show, I had happened to see you on, I think, with Laura, and then and then I ran into you like the next day. Somebody said, "Hey, you need to look this guy up," and I'm like, "Oh, I just saw him." And then I've seen you on a few other platforms such as this over the past couple of months since we did the first show. I'm just curious because I don't really ever watch them all. I pick up little nuances, then I move on. What are the topics on these platforms that you are visiting? What are you talking about on the shows? Is it along the same lines, or is there something else going on?
I love what you bring to it. You bring a depth of articulation and awareness that gives it a unique kind of more of a dialogue perspective. Now, not to say the other ones don't, because they do. They absolutely do. But it's different. You know, a lot of people are going to be focused on their own perception of reality and presenting things based on where they're at and where they're most focused on. And so the things that I will say or present in relation to that are going to be in relation to them. Like what you and I are doing is we're talking about and developing the idea of new possibilities being innate within us that we can activate by our willingness to explore them. So to answer your question, they're all different.
They're all different. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. I'm looking back at your message over here, and I'm watching the people come into the different platforms. You had said that you when I said you want to come back on, and you sent me a note, and you talked about the frequency that you carry, and you talked about, I'm not sure if it's metaphoric or literal or both, but I'm very interested to see what you have to say about it. You talked about that you'd love to share it with the volume turned up to 11, if that felt right. So who are listening, I might have misread that. What did you mean by that? Talk to me about your frequency. I know you talked a little bit about this on the first show in regard to your experience and your journey, but can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So the frequency, you could say, essentially, is there's this innate intelligence that's in all of our bodies. It's causing our hearts to beat. And I've realized that this innate intelligence that's in me, that's allowing my human consciousness to even exist at all, is way more intelligent than I am. And I was like, what happens if I take this little bit of intelligence that I have and focus on this innate intelligence that I know is in me? It's caused my body to do all these incredible things faster than the speed of light. What would happen if I made a habit out of focusing on that more than anything else, more than dwelling on my problems, more than feeling my feeling. Like, and I have just done this over and over and over. And it gets to a point where you, as the person you believe yourself to be, comes to an edge, you could say. You come to the edge of self, where you cease to exist as this separate, seemingly separate identity in space and time. And you begin to integrate this greater innate intelligence that is not just in your body, it's everywhere. It's in every living thing, every sentient thing, every non-sentient thing. It is everything. It's the quantum field. It's the mind of God. It's the, the living universe. And the more I focus on that and allow myself to go beyond the edge of who I believe myself to be, I begin to integrate more and more of this invisible, unseen, immaterial reality that I know to be more in alignment with what is ultimately true, you could say, or ultimately real, than the part of me that has been habituated or conditioned to perceive things with my normal five senses. So in that way of focusing on this and making it habitual and doing it over and over, different aspects of my own perception become activated within my being, and they're supported by this greater universal frequency. But it's not as big a deal as it sounds, because everybody is this. Everybody has the ability to do this. And that's what it seems like we're coming to now, with all these people talking about this and all this intensity. Everything is gearing up to where we as individuals are getting to this point where we're being like forced in many ways to wake up or just get crushed by it.
I gotta say, man, that was a great explanation, and I'm gonna that's what I do. I like to restate what I hear, because it embeds within me. But I get what you're saying in a way that I haven't been able to verbalize, and everything's changing. But so one way that it's been described is I'm integrating or merging my higher self or higher aspects, or however you want to put it, with my human. And that kind of summarizes it in general terms. What I love about what you're saying, and let me go back to the first thing I said, as an analogy, as in an example. If we go back to our early roots, our conditioned roots, if we looked at what we called God or source or goddess, we always look up, right? There's an immediate separation there. There's an even now as we go into meditation or communion, we tend to look up, or out, and there's an immediate frequency violation of oneness right there, because you're in separation already. Now, what I love about what you're saying is that universe, that God, that goddess, that source is actually this physical body, which is really made of the same God substance as everything else. And it's I guess maybe the uniqueness of this trip, although I was shown many humanoids and many other types of things in the last day in the transmission I was telling you about. The fact is that this is like a physical Merkaba. And from what I'm hearing from you is, let's start with, and this is different than going within. This is actually tapping into each piece and each cell and each atom of this body, as it all contains, and that's all is the Akashic, right? And I love what you said too. The last thing I add to this, how you said, I will take my limited, finite mind of man, and I will focus it on my innate, infinite intelligence. And then the dance begins. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And how are we going to go from there?
Well, it's such an invaluable, it's a priceless way to perceive yourself in reality. And I would say it's more like, ancient scriptures, ancient texts, all of the ancient spiritual practices, everything has been pointing to this the whole time. But people are, because of the way we process and learn information, we still perceive it from a philosophical or theoretical perspective instead of an experiential. And the whole point of it is to take that information and begin to experience it. So the information is great. We do need to have some kind of understanding of it because we're so conditioned to perceiving the world in that way. But at what point do we take that information, apply it to what we have available to us, and start expanding the potential of that?
Yeah.
For me, that's really all it was. It was like, I didn't think I was God, but I realized that there was this innate intelligence, like I said, all through my body. And I realized that there was this person who didn't feel really connected to that. And I knew that in the recognition of that was a bunch of missing pieces that I could put together. I was like, you know what? I can put this together. I don't know how, I don't know, but I'm going to put it together. And it seemed like the most simple way of doing that was.
He just rocked the internet. He just knocked himself off. He'll be back. This is good. Good conversation. You know, this is just another example of how I mean, I'm just going to say this. I know it's my opinion, but our highest transmissions, downloads, channelings, activations come through two of us or more of us having a conversation. Um, Here he is, and this is evidence. There you go. You knocked it. You know, you killed it, man.
Just bleep it out.
Hey, these things are not coincidences. I'm telling you, every time, and I think the last time we did a show, we had trouble getting on. We did this time too, actually, but yeah, I've noticed that you have those glitches. I had Marie Batchelor on here from Australia Saturday, and man, she was rolling. She was on it, and then all of a sudden she started glitching, and I knew it wasn't on the camera, and I haven't gone back and looked at it, but it wasn't just that; it was the sound. Like words were repeated, and I know it wasn't just in my third eye. So these things happen all the time. It's clear evidence. Yeah.
Well, it speaks to the potential, right? This, like, again, like keeping returning to this innate intelligence of the body. I like, just from a common sense oriented perspective, I am consciously aware that there are things happening in my body faster than the speed of light and sound, and it's happening constantly. So if I'm not consciously aware of these inner workings to the degree that I'm attuned to them or in alignment with them, then I know that there's still something there, whether it's past thoughts or feelings or things that are inhibiting the natural flow of energy that allows me to exist in a more state of completion or wholeness.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I was saying earlier, like, whenever I get into these states, I focus on this innate intelligence. It allows me to move beyond this perception of myself, which is mostly just a bunch of thoughts and feelings that have accumulated. And I start experiencing myself as a living geometric field, as a frequency, as sound, as all this stuff. And it's like you said before, like, to make it simple, like, yeah, we're integrating this higher aspect of ourself into this part of ourself. But the key thing to know is that it's already done. It's not like it's not integrated. It's all actually whole, and it's already there. It's just our conscious awareness hasn't caught up to the recognition of that yet. And that's the beauty of it, because we've got something to work up towards. And it's like we're consciously aware of a very limited aspect of the totality of what is actually available to us.
Yeah.
But by reprioritizing our values, so instead of focusing on all of these things around us and our thoughts and feelings in relation to them, we say, you know what? I don't know what it is, but whatever is causing my heart to beat, what's causing my lungs to breathe, what's causing thoughts to arise in my mind, what's causing all this stuff to happen in my body faster than the speed of light and sound, becoming aware of that and knowing it and cultivating a relationship with it, to me sounds like it's a lot more valuable than no matter what it is, like insert whatever you want in there, money, relationship.
Mm-hmm. Everything we've tried before, sex, drugs, rock and roll.
As great as those things are, they
Yeah.
pale in comparison to
Yeah.
the individual who has been able to become aware of their actual nature, embody that actual nature, and then live in this world and communicate with others in a way where they're encouraging others to know themselves in that way, because that is a more redefined definition of success, the kind of success we're looking to achieve here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm digging that. And I think what we're looking at is a mass movement, potentially, where you might have had a group of adepts, living in a cave. The last I've been able to find any evidence of was in the late 1800s, was in Tibet. And they were finding people that were 400 or 500 years old that were coming to the town and, get whatever abundance they needed for the day. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that, we're at this point where we've pretty much exhausted all other possibilities, and taking stock in ourselves. It all go within. It all sounded corny, New Ageisms and all that stuff, but there's something here, that same thing that allows the heart to beat and the blood to flow the way it does, and the bones to have the density they do, and the whole 9 yards. There seems to be this invisible hand of providence. There's some kind of something in the air that is supporting any individual, any couple, any group that is devoted to themselves, as themself is everything, And I just want to say one other comment, and I'll throw it back to you. You were talking about, what did you say? Something about taking the walk or going to the edge. Yeah. Like that part of you that goes to the edge, and the closer you get to the edge, the more of that other innateness that starts to come to the surface. And I had a week last week where I had 3 days in a row where for the first time, I've heard people talk about it, but for the first time, I felt like I was dying, and I have, and it doesn't even matter what pieces of me it was, but I know they were core pieces. But to me, I went from saying, we got to walk the talk, Todd, to we got to walk the plank. It's not even going to the edge now. It's like we're jumping off. And if we look at the personal transformations everybody's made, many people that have talked about it on this show and in this community, why would it be any different? Why would the pattern be any different if we jump off the edge? I mean, there's a big something far beyond our comprehension. It's far greater than anything we can think of ourselves that's in store. And you're right, we only have bits and pieces of it. Even if we talk telepathy, teleportation, bilocation, telekinesis, even if we talk about those things, those are still just a little bitty, minuscule part of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a question for you. I'm sorry. Our beloved sister Xana, she's been a big supporter for a long time. She says, how did Seth do it in the experiential way? What examples can he give? Was it through meditation, listening to the innate inside of you?
So there's so many different ways that I can answer this. So let me kind of playing off what you were just talking about. I've had a lot of near-death experiences.
Okay.
Where I was in a really severe car accident when I was young. I've overdosed on drugs. I've had really, really hardcore near-death experiences that have forced me out into that. And no matter what, if it's from natural causes, like a car accident isn't natural, but or drug-induced, no matter what the cause of what initiated the near-death experience to happen, even though the cause might be different, but the same thing happened to me every single time. It's like my human self got to this point where it's contained within, but then it goes to this place where there's this involuntary process that's happening where you're much more in alignment with what's actually going on and why you incarnated to begin with, that comes into view. And here's the thing is, that's always there no matter what. Yet most people aren't living in alignment with that or with the awareness of it. Yet everybody knows that at some point in this current form, they're most likely going to die. Now I say there are possibilities to not, but most people are going to die. And at that point, everything that we're not confronting or coming to terms with here now, suddenly we're face to face with it. So in many ways, if we're honest with ourselves, the ultimate truth of why we incarnated in the first place is always seated within our conscious awareness of self. But our ability to live in harmony with it is our responsibility.
Yeah.
So, but let me go back, let me preface this a little bit, because it wasn't near-death experiences that caused me to just be aware of this. It was, as a young child, I was literally just living in nature. I had a perfect early childhood, and my family loved me. They left me alone. They just let me explore and play in nature. And for some reason, I just found it within myself to sit still and just pay attention to nature as it was around me. And that automatically would just calm me down. My breathing would get calm. I'd feel happy inside. And I would just start going into almost like, it felt like a trance or a hypnotic kind of state where the world began to disappear, literally, from my perception of awareness. The world, even nature, it would disappear. And all that would be there was this field, this energy, this white light, whatever you want to call it, with my heart beating in it. And this wasn't a big deal. It was just a normal, natural function of my own consciousness. And I knew that as a young child. I didn't have the words that I have now to articulate it and explain it, but it was just this normal function of my human awareness. And I realized that it was just there.
Yeah.
Now, when I got subjected to going to school or getting bullied or going through whatever things happen in the world, that's when I realized that these jarring experiences were taking me out. They were preventing me from being able to access that part of myself. And so as a species, I feel like we've had so much personal and collective trauma that has accumulated within the actual collective of human consciousness itself, that it prevents many people from being able to access this. But even that is an illusion.
Yeah.
So really all it comes down to is realizing that no matter, like, our greatest fears, we're going to face them no matter what anyway. Like, there's no getting out of this. So the things that happen to us are actually happening for us. And when we learn how to live life in a way where we're not afraid of the things that cause us to feel afraid or stressed out, but instead looking at them as opportunities to realize, like, oh, okay, I'm feeling afraid. I'm feeling that's a blockage in my perception, in my awareness. And it's like, okay, that's what I'm working on. So I'm bringing this calm, peaceful state of being into this part of me that is blocked. And it's in doing that it eventually causes that blockage to dissipate or dissolve. And the connection, which is already there for everybody. Okay, that's the thing. Like, I am nobody special. Everybody is somebody special. Okay, if I'm special, we're all special. And I believe we are. I believe every single one of us is the most beautiful, amazing, special, incredible being that there ever could be. But nobody has really encouraged us to know ourselves in that way. But now it's starting to happen. That's why we're having this conversation. That's why all these things are happening. Like, you know, we've been so conditioned to compete with each other in order to support this corporate hierarchical, thing, this scheme that keeps the corporate world running. But those days are coming to an end.
Yeah.
We're here to love one another. But in order to truly love each other, not in like, we have to, and love is kind of a weak word to use in this regard, because what we're actually talking about is becoming so hyper aware of the spark of life itself that it's glowing through all of the cells and glands and plexus centers of your body, to the degree that you consciously become aware of all that. And when you're in that state, that is kind of more like the love that I'm referring to.
Yeah.
And you want others to feel that. So that's a long, indirect way of answering.
No, that's a very direct. She said yes, and sounds, yeah, she was, yeah. I mean, it's like, I can just see it like, so that, let's just say, for the sake of this discussion, it's Eden, right? And everything's a paradise, and one program gets put down, right? Because and as a result of that, another program's formed that opposes it, or that's a better way, right? And I think about this because how do we diffuse the impression and perception that we have in regard to what is fear-based programming, what is programming, what is conditioning? We have a soul that's just got layers and layers of belief systems that's shrouding it. That to me kind of takes the emotion, and it takes the conspiracy, and it takes this out and that out and all that stuff. And it becomes more of a scientific, a mechanical thing. It's not, it doesn't have the bite. It's not personal. It doesn't mean I have to rebel, and I don't have to get up on my pedestal and talk about the Illuminati. And it's just belief systems. So, where do I start with this? Do I, that's your belief system, and that's their belief system. And do I have a belief system? What is my belief system? And this is, to me, a much more, a more graceful way to do it. There's more ease. I mean, I'm starting to see where, embodying this vessel, okay, this extraordinary vessel in this extraordinary place, for me anyway, is starting to get a little bit easier, because the clarity that's coming in is you really are this from outside of this container. And, the more you can apply just the belief, that innateness, that innate belief in knowing, that voice that's always been there since day one, right? Yeah. Whether it was talking or whether it was intuiting, the more power and magic you're going to have, which leads me to, where are we going? How do I implement the fountain of youth in my body? How do I extend my life hundreds of years? Because I know it's possible. Do you have any ideas on that as an example?
I have infinite ideas on it.
Let's go.
Well, first of all, let's start with belief systems, because that's such a great starting point for all this. I personally, just from a taking rational self-inventory perspective, it's pretty easy to realize that there's way more going on than I could ever believe. So why would I get attached to any specific beliefs or ideas unless they're totally empowering me, which a lot of my beliefs and ideas that I've become conditioned to embedding into my nervous system weren't really empowering me. They're just keeping me stuck in this cyclical kind of like thing that it's kind of like you said at the beginning of this, in many ways, like the version of insanity, just keep doing the same thing over and over. So in taking my belief systems, letting everything go, realizing that there's way more going on than I could ever believe, just the act of doing that is me sending a signal to all the cells of my body, to my entire energy field, that I am open to possibility. And in that kind of commitment, that internal unconditional devotion to knowing yourself as you truly are, not as you think yourself to be, allows this field, this energy that's animating the being, this innate intelligence, to respond to you consciously and give you feedback. So the more I start focusing on all of this, it's not like, oh, I just focus on it and nothing happens. At some point, I started getting feedback that the more I focus on it, the more it starts to focus on me.
Mm.
And in that way, an amplification of potential becomes innate in what is already innate intelligence. So essentially, and to use like this new age kind of words that everybody's throwing around, these buzzwords, by becoming aware of this thing that you really truly are, this energy form that is primary, and knowing that your human self is secondary, by prioritizing that and becoming aware of it, I am then co-creating with it. So it's not like just it exists and it's doing whatever it does and I have no choice in any of it. It's more like it's existing, it's doing what it's doing, and it's giving me a choice to be aware of it or not.
Yeah.
And the more I choose to become aware of it, the more it acknowledges that that is happening. And in that, this expansion or amplification of potential then takes place, wherein these glands, the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, the thyroid gland, all of these glands that are all through us, that Indian systems refer to as chakras, or that Taoist systems refer to as dantians, whatever you want to call them. They're perceptual energy centers of the mind and body that are also all around us too. They're field. They start to become activated by us prioritizing our commitment to this seemingly unknowable, unbelievable, invisible thing that seems very subtle with the way we're most accustomed to perceiving things, but that becomes less subtle and more blatant or more tangible with our devotional commitment to knowing ourselves in this way.
Yeah, I'm digging this. So, I think of, and I've never read it anywhere, not that I can recall, the law of reciprocation. So when I reawoke, I was told everything is very simple, profound truths. The more complicated you make it, the further you get away from it. So they said to me, there is one. And I said, okay, I got that one. 2, we were all unique and equal souls. So fractals, unique, equal, all have a different soul signature. I get that one. And then that there is only one, that there is a golden rule. Golden rule. What goes around comes around. Cause and effect. This is the equal exchange of the universe. This is the basis of all creation. We can call it karma when we're unconscious. Now we're conscious creators, or more conscious creators, because we're still afflicted by the belief systems. As we shed them, we get more and more attuned with what you're talking about. But going back to what you said about the body being the representation of the whole, and my limited finite mind focusing on that infinite intelligence that I am, you're right. And we've all tasted this. But this, to me, like in relation or in respect to the body being the focal point as the whole, as a fractal of the whole, having all the attributes of it, and you have that reciprocation. In fact, it's already happening. People all year long have been saying, my body's telling me this, my body's telling me that. But this is a fact. And now we're in this physical realm. And, I think with the universal energies that are available in the realm now, and then increasing as we speak, we'll get an immediate answer. We'll get an immediate evidence and reaction and response to our, what is that word? Devotion, our commitment. It's not really a discipline. It's more of a habit. It's more of a change of direction. It's the new way, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I can see what you're saying. And that's another great explanation, because to me, the metaphoric and the literal are another merging. So when you start talking about the body and we're not looking out there, and you start talking about applying this creative intention with really in your field, it all takes place. There is no gurus and there is no yogis and teachers. This is all taking place right here. It's my physical, which my finite mind is part of that physical, and it is my infinite capacity as a fractal of the whole. And the laboratory's right here. You know, I don't have to go outside of myself at all. And I think we've all seen evidence of that in our transformation, in our journeys as we've transformed. And this is, to me, kicking it up to a little higher level.
I love that. And there's so much wisdom in what you said regarding this idea of simplification of it, because we tend to overcomplicate everything because we just do. We just can't help but make problems when there actually weren't any to begin with. We have a knack for that. So what I always do is like, okay, if I'm making a problem out of something that's not even there, the simple thing is to take my attention, bring it back to my breath, you know, and this is all I do. I just breathe rhythmically and I smile. And smile is a great acronym for, I might have said this on the last show, I say it everywhere, but start my internal love engine. So breathing rhythmically, smiling inwardly, because when you smile, you can feel uplifted. You feel something that's heartwarming. It's good. It's beautiful. And being in that state, if I can't sustain that state, then I know there's stuff, you could say karma, or even just thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, and actions that have accumulated in this life, creating a habit that's overriding my ability to be in that uplifted state. So it's really, if we can't bring ourselves back to a state of calm, simplicity, of happiness, then that means that whatever is preventing us from being able to do that is this beautiful, great opportunity for us to face the parts of us that keep us from being in a conscious state of wholeness. And I look at it too, more, it's the body, even the body, I perceive my own body as more of a secondary or whatever expression of a more primary expression. So my body, my human identity, my ego, who I believe myself to be, and what I think is happening is a secondary expression of a primary expression. That primary expression is this field of energy that is animating the heart, and what's causing the heart to be animating the body. That's what I know to be myself as I truly am. And now the trick is, it's that in-between point of taking your human awareness, surrendering it to the recognition that you're not who you think you are, and you're not your physical body. That's not a primary expression of what you actually are. It's a secondary or whatever. The primary expression of what you are is this energy field. Now, when you consciously start to become aware of it through the body, through all these different things that we're talking about, then you build a bridge of conscious coherence between the conscious mind as it's most used to perceiving reality that we tend to call the ego, where we get caught and stuck in, and the subconscious stuff that we know is happening all around us, but we're not really fully aware of it. And eventually the unconscious. The more we choose to get in alignment with all of this stuff, the more we create this bridge between the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious parts of our own perceptual possibility.
Another trinity.
Yes.
Another trinity. No, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, so I'm totally in tune with this, and I'll tell you why. As I'm working with my body, working on some minor ailments and, healing, which I've done before. Okay. But now I'm doing it in 2020 and expecting and intending quicker and quicker results. It's my own experimentation. And there's other things I could use as examples that are not so much entrenched in the body. But the fact is, how do I reverse the aging process? How do I extend my life? How do I regenerate, um, parts of my body that have gone past the state of maturity? They're on, from the human perception, are on the downhill glide. So this is good because it doesn't stop at my physical body. That's true. We're not solid. Okay. So now we can call it light body. We can call it energy body. It doesn't even matter. It's my field of energy. It's my piece of real estate in the universal. And I am the God element. I have the ability to create just as what created me did. Okay. So I can see now that the emphasis is, as the emphasis becomes more pronounced on the energetic body, there's a de-emphasis on the limitedness of the physical body. So this is a good one for today. This is a very good one. For me, this is good because although I think we have this innate thread to certain things that we know, there's something about this trip, this series of incarnations, where there is a meeting place of that intellect with that infinite intelligence. There's something about speaking it. A lot of people talk about the throat chakra and saying what you need to say, and whether that's literal or figurative. But there's something about becoming aware that is as my wife says, it's the root of transformation, is to become aware. And it's gold. It's gold to think we can have a conversation and code is shot out into the ethers to where the human mind can actually grasp it. And it may take a day or a week or a year or whatever the case is, but we're knocking down some big dominoes in 2020. And it's not, and this is how we started this show, or conversation even before the show. When are we going to get off the boob tube? And what I mean by that is not literally the TV, but anything that distracts us from the business at hand, because it's not business. It's creation, it's life, it's expansion. And I'm getting more and more excited as the days go by, especially as we approach this solstice.
That's why I'm always smiling. I'm like, because when you become aware of this and you realize that it's happening, like I said, it's almost like it's already done. It's already happened. And now our human selves are just catching up to the remembrance that we are capable of realizing in this way. And that is exciting.
I think the only limiting factor, and it's not even a permanent, it's a temporary thing, is the amount of revelation and epiphany and everything that parallels that, including looking to your right and seeing one of your loved ones that's transitioned. These miraculous supernatural things from the human perspective, when it's only the human perspective. But the only thing I think that might legitimately slow us down is just the fact that we couldn't take it all in because we still haven't progressed enough as a human, or detached enough from the human body and all that it encompasses. And until we get more grounded in the energy body, which to me is that's something I'm going to explore, because this is a perfect example of pure self-reliance, independence, and so much else, choosing self, serving the collective. And it all happens right here. It all happens right here. And you know how this goes now. And I know people can relate to this, especially since any of us have had a reawakening, and that is, this communion is going on all the time. And you're right. The more you work with it, the more it works with you. And I'm including myself in this. most of us have considered that proposition as being something outside of us or above us. But this is actually me working with me. So excellent show. I'm having a good time. Yeah. So let us know. People are going to know if they haven't, or if they're not familiar with you. How do people get in touch with you? What do you offer as a practitioner or service or product? And if there's anything else you want to cover before we get out of here, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on and for all of that. And, you know, the way that people can really support me is by hearing what I said, applying it to their own life, and becoming that which I'm giving voice to and speaking of. Because the more that individuals overcome all of their conditioning of this life, of every other life, and begin to live as these empowered beings, these are the people that I want to connect with and talk to. And I know, and I am doing it, and there's lots of people who are doing this. So that's how you can find me, connect to that field, be there. I'll be there with you, and we will be, there's a party in the heavens that is happening right now for the very struggles that we face as individuals. And man, I keep being brought into that. Anytime anything comes up, I keep finding myself there. So that's how people can support me. Now, on a more down to earth, I have a website, I'mAwakeNowWhat.com.
I'm awake now. What?
This little bug's like hang out with me.
I'm awake now. What?
Yep. I'mAwakeNowWhat.com.
Okay, that's all lowercase run together.
Yep.
There it is, people.
No apostrophe or whatever.
I'm awake now. What.com.
Yep.
I'm awake now. What? Yeah. .com. There we
Sign
go.
up for my newsletter. You know, I'll keep everybody updated. That's probably the best way. That's like for all this stuff that I'm talking about. I have a book that I wrote, The Fight to Enlight, which is on there, which is great for people to read and kind of know more about where I'm coming from with all this. I own 2 companies in the natural foods industry.
Okay.
I'm very much a believer in what do we do once we're in these states? We want to express that. You know, in order to change the quote unquote system, we got to work within the systems in place and bring this into it. You know, it doesn't need to happen instantly. We have this like, come on, like it needs to happen now. It's happening no matter what, always, forever, in every way. And the soul essence of ourselves is always connected to that. So we're never missing out on anything, even if we feel like we are, even if we feel like we're not evolving or adapting quick enough. This part of us that we truly are is that. It's always doing that. So tourmalinespring.com is my spring water business. We've prevented a giant corporation from destroying this beautiful spring. It's just a small bottling operation that we have. And
Cool.
we have a sprouted nut company called livingnuts.com that I've had for almost 20 years.
What's it called? A spotted nut.
No, living nuts with a Z.com. So Tourmaline Spring.
Okay.
And then livingnuts.com.
Oh, I got it. Livingnuts.com.
To find.
Very cool. Very, very cool. All right, brother. Until the next time, if I don't see you before the end of 2020, have a happy new year. have a great winter solstice. Many elevations and expansions to you and activations. And thank you very much for coming in and honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us today. So until the next time, you take care, brother. All right.
Thank you, Tom.
Peace out. Be back in 38 minutes with Mary Rodwell.